Make sure you clean this place very well. That is what you are here for.
When you are done washing plates, you clean my room, then you wash my clothes, and after you take the trash out. Do you hear me?
Joyce knelt on the bathroom floor, scrubbing another woman's underwear with her bare hands. Her tears fell into the bucket. Her back ached. Her heart ached more. 6 months ago, she was a bride. Eyes full of stars, heart full of trust. Now she was on her knees, in a city she didn't know, in a marriage that was never hers. But before you judge what she did next, let me tell you how she got here. Because this is not just Joyce's story. This is the story of every woman who loved too purely, trusted too deeply, and stayed too long. Stay with me. Joyce's hands would not stop shaking. She knelt on the cold bathroom floor, her wrapper gathered around her knees, her fingers deep inside a bucket of soapy water. The tiles were white, clean. Everything in this city apartment was clean and expensive, and nothing felt like hers. She lifted the piece of clothing from the bucket. It was not hers. She knew whose it was. She had known for 3 days now. But she still washed it, because Adams had asked her to, because Adams had said it was nothing, because she was still telling herself that if she worked hard enough, if she stayed quiet enough, things would get better. Her tears fell into the bucket. She watched them disappear into the soap water and thought, this is what I have become. But let me take you back, because Joyce was not always this woman on the floor. 6 months ago, Joyce Bellow was the most hopeful girl in Ede Village. She was 26, slim, dark-skinned, with a smile her mother said could calm a crying baby. She worked on her family's farm every morning and sold tomatoes at the village market in the evenings. Her life was simple, but she was not unhappy. She had a plan. Save money, open a small shop, marry a good man someday. Then Adams came to Ede. He was from the city Lagos, by way of his father's people in Ede. He had come for his uncle's burial. He wore a pressed shirt. He smelt like something expensive. He spoke with the kind of confidence that only city men carry. He noticed Joyce at the market. "How much for those tomatoes?" he asked. She told him. He bought them all, every single basket. Then he came back the next day and the day after that. He was not buying tomatoes anymore. Within 2 weeks, he had spoken to her family. He sat with her father. He brought drinks and spoke respectfully and said all the right things. Her mother pulled Joyce aside that night with happy tears in her eyes. "This man is serious," her mother whispered. "Don't let this one go." The wedding was small and traditional. No hall, no generator, no DJ, just family, food, prayers, and palm wine in plastic cups. Joyce wore yellow lace. She felt like the most beautiful woman alive. Adams held her hand during the blessing and leaned close to her ear. "I'm taking you to Lagos," he whispered. "New life, better life. You will never have to sell tomatoes again." She laughed. She believed him with her whole chest. 3 months later, they packed 2 bags. Her mother stood at the road and watched them go. "Take care of my daughter," she called out to Adams. Adams waved without turning around. Joyce waved twice. Then the bus rounded the corner and Ede disappeared behind her. She pressed her face against the window and watched her village fade into the distance. She was smiling. She did not know yet that she was leaving the safest place she had ever known. But the city Joyce arrived in was not the city Adams had described. Lagos was loud. That was the first thing Joyce noticed. The noise hit her before the heat did. Car horns, generators, people shouting from balconies, Okada riders weaving through traffic like they feared nothing. Joyce held her bag tightly and stayed close to Adams. He walked ahead of her, fast, certain, like a man who knew exactly where he was going, because he had been here many times before. They took a taxi to an estate in Surulere. The roads were cleaner there, the buildings taller. Joyce looked up at everything like a child, seeing the world for the first time. Adams stopped in front of a yellow building. 3rd floor, apartment 7. He knocked. The door opened, and there she was, beautiful, light-skinned, tall, with long braided hair falling past her shoulders. She wore a fitted dress and house slippers, and she looked completely relaxed, like this was her home, because it was. "Adams," she said brightly. She hugged him, warm and long, the kind of hug that comes from missing someone. Then she looked at Joyce, and she smiled even wider. "You must be Joyce," she said sweetly. "Welcome! I have been waiting to meet you. Come in, come in." She stepped aside and opened the door wide. She took Joyce's bag from her hand before Joyce could refuse. "You must be tired from the journey," she said. "Sit down. Let me get you water." Joyce sat. She looked around the apartment. It was nice. 1 bedroom, a sitting room, a small kitchen. She noticed a woman's slippers near the door. She noticed a handbag on the kitchen counter. She noticed the wardrobe through the open bedroom door had clothes already hanging inside. But Annie was being so kind, so warm. Joyce pushed the thoughts away. Adams sat down, and Annie brought water for both of them. She asked Joyce about the journey. She laughed at something Adams said. She asked Joyce questions about Eid with what looked like genuine interest. Joyce relaxed. Maybe I was worried for nothing, she thought. That evening, Adams explained. Annie is my cousin, he said. She has been keeping the apartment while I was away. She will stay a few more days to help you settle in. She knows Lagos well. Thank you, Joyce said to Annie. God bless you, Annie smiled. We are family. That is what family does. That night, Adams told Joyce he would sleep on the couch. You take the bedroom, he said. Rest well. You had a long day. Joyce lay in the big bed alone. The sheets smelled unfamiliar. She told herself it was just the city. Everything was new. Everything felt strange. She just needed time to adjust. She slept. She did not hear Adams quietly leave the couch in the middle of the night. She did not hear the bedroom door open and close softly. She did not hear anything. Not yet. And that was when the requests started. Small at first, then unbearable. It started with the dishes. 3 days after they arrived, Annie called from the kitchen. Joyce, come and wash these plates. Not please, not can you help me. Just wash these plates. Joyce stopped folding clothes in the bedroom. She waited. She waited for Adams to say something from the sitting room where he was watching television. He said nothing. Joyce walked to the kitchen and washed the plates. She told herself she was being helpful. Annie had been managing the house alone. It was only fair to contribute. The next morning, Annie pointed at the floor near the door. "Sweep that." Joyce swept it. That evening, Annie put a pile of clothes outside the bathroom door and called out, "Joyce, wash those for me. I need them tomorrow." Joyce stood in the hallway looking at the pile. She looked at Adams. "Adams," she said quietly, "is this—" "Just help her," Adams said without looking up from his phone. "She's doing us a favour by being here." Show appreciation. Joyce picked up the clothes and carried them to the bathroom. She washed every piece, including the underwear. Her hands shook the entire time. After that day, the arrangement became permanent without anyone saying so out loud. Joyce cooked every meal. Annie ate and said nothing. Joyce mopped the floors. Annie watched television. Joyce washed the clothes. Annie pointed at whatever she felt Joyce had missed. "You didn't rinse that properly. That corner is still dirty. The rice is too soft. Learn how to cook. Always flat. Always cold." The sweetness of that first day had vanished completely. The warm cousin who had welcomed Joyce at the door was gone. In her place was a woman who gave orders and expected them to be obeyed. And Adams watched all of it and said nothing. Joyce tried one more time. One evening, when Annie had gone out, she sat beside Adams on the couch. "Adams," she said carefully, "I am your wife, not a house girl. Why are you letting her speak to me that way?" Adams looked at her. "You are overreacting." "I am not overreacting. She orders me around like Joyce." His voice dropped, hard and final. "Annie is family. She is helping us. Stop making trouble out of nothing." He stood up and walked to the bedroom. He slept there that night. He told Joyce the following morning that she should sleep on the mat in the sitting room. "Annie needs the mat. Bedroom for now," he said simply. "She has some personal things going on. It's just temporary." Joyce looked at him. She wanted to ask what personal things. She wanted to ask, "Why does your cousin sleep in your bedroom and your wife sleeps on a mat?" She wanted to ask so many things. But she had seen what happened when she asked questions. So she carried her wrapper to the sitting room and lay down on the mat. She told herself it was temporary. She stared at the ceiling and listened to the sound of the city outside. Generators humming, a dog barking somewhere far away, music playing from another apartment. Her phone buzzed. Her mother. "How is Lagos? How is married life, my daughter?" Joyce held the phone against her chest for a long time. Then she typed back, "Fine, Mama. Everything is fine." She put the phone down and closed her eyes. Everything was not fine. But Joyce did not know the worst was still coming. The truth she could not unsee. It was past midnight when Joyce woke up. The apartment was dark and quiet. The generator outside had been switched off. The only sound was the ceiling fan turning slowly above her. Then she heard it. Annie's voice from the bedroom, low, laughing softly. Then Adams's voice, murmuring something back. Joyce lay completely still on her mat. She did not move. She did not breathe. She just listened, and she understood everything. Not slowly, not in pieces, all at once. Like a bucket of cold water thrown over her, She sat up in the dark, her hands folded in her lap, her face completely still. But inside her chest, something was breaking, quietly, the way a clay pot cracks before it finally shatters. She sat there the whole night. She did not sleep again. When morning came and she heard the bedroom door open, she was already sitting at the kitchen table. She had made tea, 2 cups. Her hands were steady, frighteningly steady. Adams came out and stopped when he saw her face. He knew that face. "Adams," Joyce said. Her voice was calm. "Who is Annie to you?" "She is my cousin. I have told you Adams, just his name," said quietly. But there was something in it that made him stop. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he pulled out the chair across from her and sat down. He started to speak. Then he stopped. Then he started again. "Joyce, tell me the truth," she said. "Just tell me." He looked at the table. And then he told her, not with shame, not with regret. He told her the way a man explains something he decided long ago and has already made peace with. Annie was his woman. They had been together for 2 years before he went to Eid. When his family began pressuring him to marry, he went to the village and found Joyce. The marriage was real on paper, real in the eyes of the village, but here in Lagos, nothing had changed. Annie was still his woman. Joyce was his wife. He saw no reason both could not exist. "I am still taking care of you," he said. "You have a roof. You have food. You are in the city now. You should be grateful." Joyce opened her mouth, but before she could speak, Annie walked out of the bedroom. She looked at Joyce, sitting at the table. She looked at the 2 cups of tea. She smiled. Not a warm smile, a slow, satisfied smile. The smile of someone who has been waiting for this moment for a long time. "At least now you know," Annie said. "We can stop pretending. You are here to help with the house. That is your role, nothing more." Joyce looked at Annie. She looked at Adams. She stood up quietly. She picked up her cup of tea and poured it into the sink. Then she walked to the sitting room and sat down on her mat. She did not cry. She was done crying. She picked up her phone and dialed her brother. "Tunde," she said, "I need to tell you something." And that night Joyce made a decision. Not loud, not dramatic, but final. Tunde did not speak for a long time after she finished. That silence was worse than shouting. Then he exhaled. "I am coming there tonight," he said. "I will deal with that man with my own 2 hands. Who does he think, Tunde? Stop." "Joyce!" I said stop. Her voice was calm, firm. The voice of a woman who had already made up her mind. "I don't want fighting. I don't want noise. Fighting him will not give me back what he took from me. Nothing will." Tunde breathed heavily through the phone. "Then, what do you want?" he asked. "I want to come home," she said, "with my dignity. That is all I want." A long pause. "Okay," Tunde said quietly. His voice had changed. The anger was still there, but underneath it was something else. Pride, maybe. "I will send you money for the bus, first thing tomorrow morning. Thank you." She put the phone down. She looked around the sitting room one last time. At the mat she had been sleeping on like a visitor in her own marriage. At the kitchen she had cooked in every single day. At the bathroom where she had knelt on the cold tiles scrubbing another woman's clothes, she looked at all of it. Then she stood up and began to pack. She did not have much. 2 wrappers, 3 blouses, her Bible, her mother's photograph, the small bottle of perfume she had bought with her own tomato money before the wedding, the yellow lace dress she had worn on her wedding day, folded carefully at the bottom of the bag, even though she knew she would probably never wear it again. She was packed before sunrise. She sat by the door with her bag between her feet and waited for morning. When Adams came out of the bedroom and saw her sitting there dressed, bag packed, ready, he stopped walking. "Where are you going?" Joyce stood up. She looked at him carefully. The way you look at something that once meant everything to you. Something you have already released in your heart, even though your hands haven't let go yet. "I am going home," she said. "Joyce, don't be childish. Sit down and let us talk." "We talked," she said, "yesterday morning at the kitchen table. You told me everything I needed to know. If you walk out of this door, then I walk out," she said simply. "That is my choice." Annie appeared in the bedroom doorway, arms folded, watching. "If you leave, don't come back," Annie said. Joyce looked at her. "I won't," she said. She picked up her bag. She opened the door. She walked down the stairs of that yellow building in Surulere without looking back, past the gate, past the security man who greeted her, down the road to the bus stop where the morning air was just beginning to cool. She sat on the bench and waited for the bus. Her back was straight, her head was up. She had arrived in this city with 2 bags and a heart full of hope. She was leaving with the same 2 bags. The hope was gone. But something had replaced it, something quieter, stronger, herself. 6 months later, Joyce was back in Ede. She had opened a small provisions store beside the market. Nothing big, a wooden table, some shelves, a plastic chair with one leg slightly shorter than the others that she kept meaning to fix. But it was hers. Every tin of tomatoes, every sachet of seasoning, every naira in the small box under the counter, all hers. Her mother sat with her some evenings, and they talked and laughed and drank zobo and watched the village go about its business. Some nights after her mother went home, Joyce would sit alone in her small store in the quiet and think about Lagos, about the yellow building, about the mat on the sitting room floor, about the bucket of soapy water and the clothes that were not hers. There were nights she cried, not for Adams. She had stopped crying for Adams a long time ago. She cried for the girl she had been. The one who wore yellow lace and believed every word a man said because she had never been given a reason not to. The one who pressed her face against a bus window and smiled as her village disappeared behind her. She cried for that girl. Then she wiped her face and opened the store the next morning. Tunde had told people what happened. The village had opinions, it always did. Some said she should have stayed and fought for her marriage. Some said she was foolish to trust a city man. A few older women came to sit with her and said nothing at all, just sat beside her in the quiet, which was the kindest thing anyone did. She heard through people that Adams and Annie had separated. Without Joyce to cook and clean and carry the weight of that apartment, the cracks between them had shown quickly. Annie had wanted more than Adams could give. Adams had wanted a piece he did not deserve, they had argued. Annie had packed her own bags eventually and left. Joyce heard this on a Tuesday afternoon while she was arranging tins on her shelf. She felt nothing. Not happiness, not satisfaction, not even the small, bitter pleasure of being proven right. Just peace. She put the last tin on the shelf and straightened it carefully. Then she sat down in her plastic chair and watched the market outside her door. A young girl walked past carrying tomatoes on her head. Joyce watched her go, and she said a quiet prayer for her. And so Joyce learned what many women learn too late, that a marriage without respect is not a marriage. It is trap with a ring on it. That city lights cannot shine bright enough to cover a man's darkness. That sometimes the bravest thing a woman can do is pick up her bag and walk out quietly, not in anger, not in shame, but in the full knowledge of her own worth. Joyce lost a husband who never valued her, but she found something he could never take away. She found herself again, and that was worth everything.